This trash kid, despite being the son of a king and heir to a powerful mage, had zero talent. At 8 years old, he could barely squeeze out a single blob of magic. On the other hand, his brother could whip up fireballs with ease while talking smack. He was frequently attacked by Aster. Even so, the boy never fought back. He just ran away like his life depended on it. Aster was dead set on becoming the crown prince. The king saw the whole mess, and though he felt bad, he chose not to intervene. Survival of the fittest and all that. Instead, he summoned the great mage Listardi to tutor them both. This was a guy who could delete a mountain with a single spell. Aster was totally against it, puffing his chest out and refusing the lessons because he thought he was a natural. Solon, however, actually sat down and learned the basics, the whole theory behind the magic. Even then, his brother kept humiliating him every chance he got, but he never quit. He gave it his all, and honestly, time just flew by for him. Fast forward 6 months, and there they were, standing before the king. The ceremonial duel to decide the next heir was about to begin. Aster opened with everything he had, going for the knockout in the first hit. Credit where it's due, the kid actually had some skill. The flames swallowed Solon whole in seconds. In Aster's head, weaklings stay weak, unless they're born a genius. But our heir emerged from the fire completely untouched. This made the kid furious, so he conjured a literal barrage of fireballs. He threw everything at once, but Solon just casually walked right up to him. And then, he landed a massive punch square in that annoying kid's face. The punch was so beautiful that Aster went to sleep without even being tired. The battle is over. Solon is the new crown prince, all thanks to the great mage's training. The king himself stepped up to hand over the royal scepter, and Solon held it firm. Aster watched the whole thing, absolutely green with envy, and his face is still ugly lol. The king, thrilled with the outcome, ordered a massive celebration. His failure of a son had become a powerhouse mage at such a young age. Everyone was cheering, but that night in the castle was about to get weird. A thick smoke drifted in and put everyone to sleep, including Solon, who had his scepter swiped while he was dreaming. Suddenly, the boy wakes up. Explosions were rocking the front of the magic tower. He sprinted over there as fast as he could. A mysterious mage was inside the tower, standing before the sealed book of the ancient King Solomon. The seal was seconds away from shattering, and the protagonist asks him to wait because he shouldn't touch it. Then the crazy guy takes off the hood, saying that even with the scepter, no one can enter unless they are a descendant of King Solomon. Solon cannot believe what he is seeing because that was his professor, who says that if possible, he would like to do this peacefully. Poor MC still hasn't processed what is happening, asking why his master is in this place. He then says that this has been his goal from the beginning, but the young boy still doesn't believe his professor's words. The guy looks at the chain book, asking if the MC knows what it is. That is the Book of Seals created by King Solomon, and it seals all the evil in this world. Solon says that if he knows all of this, he shouldn't touch it, and the professor says that this place is full of evil, asking what he thinks about that, but the boy obviously had no words to say. Lestat asks if nothing else matters as long as this country is at peace because he cannot forgive something like this. Because of this world full of war and injustice, he will once again take the demon called Malice. Out of nowhere, a black light begins to emanate from the book, and then the MC gradually loses his consciousness. Lestat apologizes because the days he spent with him were enjoyable. It's a talent for magic and a just heart and will definitely become a great king. However, the world will not find peace with his way of thinking, and that is why he is doing all of this. Then those crazy chains from the book break. Solon tries to stop his teacher, but it was already too late because the book was already out of the seal. Showing all its pages, it suddenly begins to consume the teacher, enveloping the entire tower with that black aura. Soon after, a voice speaks saying that this moment has finally arrived because it has waited for a long time. After all, they should make the most of all this. Sometime later, our boy awakens, all tied up in the tower, while the city is in complete flames. He still doesn't understand how he ended up in this state, and at that moment, he hears someone laughing. A flaming monster was by his side, and Solon asks who was there. The form of that being appears, asking if he does not recognize him, and not knowing who he is just because of this small change is quite sad. The MC continues to observe that man, seeing a resemblance to his teacher, not believing that he was the one who caused all that chaos in the capital. In the city, there was a family trying to escape the mess. However, it was already too late for anything because even the knights of the capital were trembling at their core, asking what was happening because there was an immense number of monsters all over the area. The captain orders them not to panic because the soldiers must protect the people at all costs. Out of nowhere, the ground begins to shake and the extras are already going down. The rest of the knights were watching everything in despair. After all, their companions were being decimated little by little. And suddenly, a slug appears, crawling over their companions. The poor souls had already become snacks for the creature. Meanwhile, one of the knights observes in silence and then tries to charge at the slug, but at that moment, he gets punched in the face. Apparently, there were also some stone golems in that place. In the capital, An immense number of peculiar monsters remain, and the soldiers had no chance against them, much less the citizens, who were the first to be decimated. The poor MC had no choice but to watch everything from afar. After all, his entire kingdom was being lost little by little. His teacher in demon form, seeing his pupil, asks if those tears are of sadness or anger. This is exactly the emotion that the owner of this body carried, and it seems he wanted the protagonist to experience it. After all, the owner of the body hated all of them, but then Solon refuses to accept all of this. The demon says that in this chaotic world, seeing only them living in peace must have seemed unbearably filthy and despicable. Obviously, he doesn't care about anything. However, this emotion is magnificent. Then Solon says that this is not his teacher, asking who he really is. The monster smiles and, revealing his form, says that he is a demon, leaving poor Solon even more shaken by what he just heard. Out of nowhere, he starts to have strong headaches. The demon says that this pain is the very seal once imposed by the royal family, and that is what made them become demons. Their very existence was forgotten by this world, because this was the only way to erase the demons. However, the boy, while still trapped, was extremely irritated. The demon congratulates him, saying that he remembered everything securely. It's a bad person too, and the descendants of Solomon have finally completed their duty, asking what it feels like to experience the end of this mission with their own hands, and if it happens to be painful. After all of this is incredible, and demons exist in this world. At that moment, everything around begins to tremble. With a smile on his face, the guy says that the moment has come, and it seems he also wants to greet him. A giant being of fire approaches the tower. Lestat says that the name of this monster is Envy, and they say that Prince Solomon had many names. Then the being starts to laugh, saying that even if he defeated him and became a prince, it is pathetic. Then it is revealed that this is actually his poor brother, and Solon is surprised, asking why he is in this form. Aster says that he has a gift for his dear brother, and our boy is shocked to see that scene, remembering all the moments he had with his family. And Aster says that someone who chooses trash like him cannot be his father. In that instant, the protagonist becomes furious. Managing to break free from the chains, he lunges at his brother in that monstrous form. He strikes the boy, but for Aster, all of this is useless. Apparently, that kid had become much stronger than Solon and effortlessly throws him away. The boy falls to the ground injured, and the worst part is that he gets back up, and that slug from before appears behind him. Somehow it was draining his strength, and the boy collapses unconscious. The remaining creatures watch him from above, mocking him for being so weak. In that battle, he couldn't do anything and only witnessed what Lestat did, but still, that is no longer his former teacher. Soon after, his brother starts laughing, saying that he has stolen everything Solon wanted. The only thing left for him is the ability to drown in the despair of losing everything. That's why he must die once and for all, and continues his assault on the MC. He tries to defend himself but ends up taking a considerable amount of blows. Lestat, witnessing everything, says that this is the end of the royal lineage of Solomon. It had truly reached a climax there, and at that moment, the tower begins to shine. The demon looks to the side, not understanding anything, and smoke emerges from there. Lestat wonders, since when the foundation of the Great Tower had such a huge amount of paper. Assuming it could be a grimoire, he heads straight for Solon, taking him towards the tower once again, and obviously, the demon would not allow this so easily, and the same happens with Aster, trying to prevent our hero from entering the place. At that moment, an explosion occurs, and the debris from the tower falls all around the capital. And the worst part is that it wasn't enough to stop the protagonist, who is being taken to an underground place. Moreover, there is the fact that he is extremely injured. Before losing consciousness, our hero hears someone saying that the seal has been broken. Demons are nothing more than the embodiment of human desire, and the only way to erase them is to seal them, or humanity will perish. At that exact moment, Solon is the only surviving heir of the kingdom of Solomon, asking if he will resist the demons or if he will give up and die right there. The grimoire is before the MC, who says he will fight, defeating all the demons that appear before him. Then the little book says those are great words and will grant him all its power. A new body and the paths that his ancestors forged to fight against these beings, all of this will belong to the boy, and he will have to bear this burden alone. After all, he is the true heir of Solomon, and that small nation that had only a territory perished in silence. Its capital was tormented by strange rumors and was abandoned, and only time continued to flow. An unknown light emerges amidst the rubble, and it seems there is someone in that place. Out of nowhere, a naked man rises, looking around. Dressing in his clothes, he tries to process what happened in that place. After all, he remembers everything. At that moment, that book from before appears, saying that after so long, it wants to know how the world outside is. Our hero watches attentively without saying a word. After all, that whole place had already perished. Soon after, he says that there is nothing left for the beta. The book says that for a kid like him, perhaps this small country was his entire world, and in that case, there should be a much larger world. After all, he has already become a new version of himself, and upon hearing this, Solon leans against the book, saying that he wants to do nothing but kill demons. The grimoire observes, surprised, and then looks to the side, asking what that is, and Solon wants to know if there is still a living creature. since there was a presence in that place and apparently belonged to a demon. Further ahead, among the ruins of the old capital, there was a girl. She was being followed by something, and at that moment, a demon appears. The poor child was trying to escape by any means, and Solon watches the situation from above. The grimoire says that being was attacking, asking if it looked like some kind of fairy. Moreover, it wants to know what they will do about it. Our boy seemed quite irritated, and soon after, he jumps towards that monster. However, seeing this, the fairy asks him to wait and then bumps into the protagonist, asking him not to jump around like that, calling him an idiot. The grimoire appears there too, saying that she has courage, even being so small. The fairy, in turn, does not understand anything as if book was simply talking to itself. The grimoire asks to stop this mess, questioning if it had forgotten the current situation. After all, there was a demon chasing them, and without wasting time, Solon grabs the fairy, fleeing with her while that monster charges at them. Observing the situation, the grimoire states that judging by its appearance, it was apparently a demon of gluttony or perhaps one of greed. Meanwhile, the fairy was very irritated, saying that thanks to the two of them, she couldn't escape in time. However, Solon says there is no need to run, using his chains to attack that being. Surprised, the fairy finally realizes that our hero is actually a wizard and his abilities are not bad, but still, it is time to flee. However, Solon says he will not do that, and the book asks him to wait because he still cannot control his mana. Obviously, our hero was no longer listening to anything, as he harbored a lot of hatred for those creatures. Approaching that being once again, he unleashed a flurry of blows until he finally defeated it. The kid is really impressive and has grown a lot in a short time. The book, calling our hero an idiot, says he has gone too far. The fairy observes our hero, who is now standing over a dead monster on the ground, asking who he really is. The boy is incredible, and she's never seen anyone dominate a demon like that alone before. In the next scene, the MC enters a house, and of course the place was a complete wreck, getting angry at everything he had seen. The fairy says it is useless because this place has been in ruins for a long time and is nothing but trash, and anything of value was taken long ago. Moreover, it should not be ignored. The grimoire says that is exactly it, as being rude is unacceptable. The fairy says she is right, as even that strange thing was agreeing. Hearing this, the book gets irritated, asking what she means by strange. Then the fairy asks what he is, to which he replies that he is the very Tom created by King Solomon in the dictionary of his demons, and his name is Demonicpedia. However, to the fairy, he is just a scary book, and absolutely nothing has changed, as even the name is ridiculously strange. She also needs to find a name to call him, and then Solon says to call that scroll Pedia. With that, the fairy is pleased that Solon has responded, asking what her name is, to which she replies that she hasn't introduced herself either. The girl says he is right, as her name is Fizi. At that moment, she summons some items from her backpack and says that she is actually a traveling merchant. The book, surprised, says it is a magical tool with a powerful formula capable of bending space itself, and that she really has something interesting there. Hearing this, the girl is happy, saying she found it all by herself. Solon starts to look at some food, and apparently the kid was hungry. Fetsi notices this, saying that since she saved him, she will give him a discount and the payment will be just his name. With no other choice, our boy finally reveals that his name is Solon. With a smile on her face, the fairy says it's a pleasure to meet him. Time passes again, and with night falling, the two were sitting by a campfire talking. The fairy says the ruins are full of dust, as the air outside is much fresher. Meanwhile, Faizi was cooking, and the book asks if she can make something like that, to which she replies that the scroll is impressed. However, she should stop this conversation as she has finished preparing the meal. Solon looks at that bread in surprise, and upon eating it, he realizes it is really very good. Faizi asks if he liked it, and of course he did, as the kid doesn't even stop to say a word. Changing the subject, the grimoire says that judging by that place, it seems to have been in ruins for a long time. Surprised, the fairy questions if he knows nothing about it, and he is indeed quite strange. After all, it has been almost 10 years, and everyone suddenly remembered the word demon. Then they started appearing everywhere as if it were a plague. To sum it up, it is total chaos, and cities and nations have been completely annihilated, and this place was one of them, and no one knows exactly when this happened. Upon hearing this, the book says it understands. Everything that had happened before had simply faded into oblivion, becoming just a small memory of the past. However, the protagonist vividly remembered his past. Then the grimoire says it had taught Solon to fight against demons. But what he did just now was different, and this is not the way to fight against these beings. Hearing this, Solon asks the scroll to just shut up. However, for the grimoire, if it continues like this, he will definitely not win. Our hero remains silent, but at that moment he hears a noise. They quickly realize the situation, and the grimoire says it is exactly as he thought. After all, there was another demon in this place. Solon observes in silence while that little fairy was already asleep. The demon in front of him intended to devour a human who was still conscious. Our hero notices that the man is still alive, and soon after he begins to plead for his daughter. However, it was already too late, as the man had already passed on, and all of this had happened once again in front of the protagonist. A flashback appears in his mind with the same scene he had seen with his father and mother. At that moment, he invokes his magic once again, binding that demon with his magical chains. The boy was now fighting purely out of hatred, and the fairy wakes up not understanding what was happening. The grimoire, along with her, was watching without moving a muscle, or rather, without turning a page. The protagonist was filled with pure rage, striking blows at that creature. Still, he was not made of iron, as he was tiring quickly. Soon after, the grimoire calls him an idiot, saying that this way he will never defeat demons. The fairy says that since demons appeared, countless warriors and sorcerers have challenged them. At first, everyone could fight, but those who couldn't kill simply returned, coming back much stronger than before. Eventually, everyone's spirit broke, and they gave up. In the end, they were devoured by the demons. Looking at the two, they had probably traveled for a long time, so they must have seen this kind of thing countless times. It also seems that that demon has its eyes on Solon, so it's better to get out of there quickly. The two listen to what the fairy said in silence, and soon after, the book punches the protagonist. It asks him to stay calm because if he loses his composure, he won't fulfill his mission. Not only that, but he could also be devoured by demons. If he simply gives in to his emotions, he will end up like his brother, and hearing all of that, our hero just accepts in silence. Meanwhile, the fairy asks what they are doing. After all, they should leave soon. Solon, along with his grimoire, was not understanding anything at all. Asking if by any chance she wanted to go with them, the fairy shamelessly replies that yes. She may be a traveling merchant, but it's not like she has anywhere else to be, and the two of them seem interesting, so she will join them. Observing the situation, Solon says she is quite strange, and the fairy gets irritated, saying he is the last person she wanted to hear that from. At that moment, the same sound from before echoes again. Deducing the situation, the fairy realizes it was coming from that direction. The group approaches to see what was happening, and in that place, there was another demon devouring other people. The family watches the situation in despair, unable to do absolutely anything. Our hero becomes increasingly furious, remembering that old man who had spoken earlier about his daughter. He tries to intervene in the situation, but the book calls him, asking him not to make the same mistake again. Our boy just hears this and soon after asks the two to flee. However, they were too shaken to do so. Without wasting time, Solon uses his chains trying to imprison the demon in front of him. He calls for his book, which says it has already understood the situation. At that moment, it begins to glow using its research ability. With the information it had read, it found something, and this demon is called Gob, classified as number 172 in gluttony. Hearing this, the boy becomes even angrier and charges at the monster. The grimoire says that now that they know about this demon, he can eat it. Thus, Solon charges at it once more, delivering a flurry of blows that leaves the creature paralyzed. The fairy just watches everything from a distance, saying it is definitely incredible. However, it is just like before, and the scroll says she is right. A demon cannot die, nor can it be destroyed, much less disappear. And no matter how much you try to destroy it, its existence will never be erased. However, for Solon, all of this is completely different. He is the only descendant of King Solomon, and by taking the demon into his body, he is the only one who can seal it. The girl is surprised by what she just heard, and Solon, in turn, uses a magic circle to try to seal that creature. The grimoire says that it was he who taught Solon the only way to seal demons. Still, that kid, even while sealing that being, had blood in his eyes. That demon ends up turning into purple smoke, rising towards the MC's magic circle. Apparently, the sealing had worked, and Faizi says that Solon was absorbing all of that into himself. And it's as if the boy himself had become some kind of demon, and the boy's mother says that everything was fine now. Soon after, Faizi looks back, asking what happened to Solon as he defeated the demon, but is not moving. And the grimoire says it's probably because he was fighting for the first time and is basically learning about demons. He had his body torn apart by a demon when he was a child, but still he kept his body, becoming a dictionary of evil. That's why he is experiencing everything in the dictionary of evil, as if they were his own memories, all of this at this very moment. Over time, he became just a dictionary of evil, so he has to witness the acts of the demon with his own eyes. It's a trial that even King Solomon, who created the book, never even went through, and hearing this, Faizi is surprised, asking if he can handle it. However, the scroll says that he isn't even aware of it. At that moment, the light surrounding Solon begins to dissipate, and the boy falls to the ground. The two approach our hero, asking if everything is alright, and he replies that yes, it's over. Faizi is happy that everything worked out, asking him not to make her worry like that. Solon doesn't understand anything, asking what she means by that, and the girl says that it's exactly what he heard. Observing the situation, the grimoire says that the sealing has finally been completed. A day passes after that conversation, and Solon is gathering with that family, asking if he will be okay from then on. The boy's mother says yes, thanking him for everything they had done. Then the little group leaves, and Faizi tells them to take care. As they depart in the snow, that family just watches. Those two were actually not humans, but demons posing as a united family. But at that moment, Solon appears, asking if it's fun to laugh at the misfortune of humans. The monsters are surprised by what they had just seen, and when they look to the side, the protagonist is still walking. However, all of this was just a mere mirage. Solon says that they were watching a child and his father being devoured, asking if it was really that bad. Of course, those demons wouldn't say anything at all. With that, Solon had nothing more to say and advances towards those two demons, sealing them easily. The next scene shifts to another location and Solon is walking through a forest, and that fairy asks if the young man can seal any demon. He replies that it's absolutely all demons and he will seal them completely. The fairy says that if that's the case, he will spend his whole life doing that, and the little book says that demons are infinite, which is why they are actively targeting the stronger demons. Demons are attracted by spiritual gravity, and the strong inhabit people with strong minds. The weak gather around the strong demons, and that's how it works. Hearing this, the fairy says that if that's the case, she's already aware of where the strongest demons are. Asking if she wants him to talk about it, the protagonist asks where it is and also wants to know what she is planning. Hearing this, the fairy is surprised and Solon questions what she will do by following him. He also wants to know what she really gains from all this, and the fairy is left speechless. She says she is a traveling merchant, so it's good to have a strong person by her side. Besides, he can fight demons, and that's something incredible. Hearing all that excuse, the grimoire says she isn't wrong. And Faizi says it's expected since books easily win her over, and he is right. After all, she could even provide meals, begging to let her accompany them too. After that, Solon is left speechless, and time passes, finally reaching night, and they gather around a campfire. That little fairy was sleeping, and the grimoire asks if Solon is worried about her. The MC replies that yes, and the book says that's because she is following him. However, this girl is right because this world is dangerous now that the demons are back, and traveling alone must be quite difficult. Even so, Solon says that if she continues following him, she will be even more in danger. At that moment, the grimoire is surprised, asking if Solon might actually be worried about her. Our hero asks if that is bad, but he shouldn't be consumed by revenge, and if he does, he will become a demon. The grimoire says no, because in fact it is happy. After all, the fate given to him is difficult. He must not be consumed by revenge, for if he does, he will become a complete demon. However, the protagonist says that he will definitely never become a being like that. The grimoire says he is correct, but this is an extremely complicated path. Meanwhile, that little fairy was sleeping and dreaming of something. While she was in the rain, someone had found her and simply helped her, saying that everything would be alright now. Poor Faizi was even crying, and at that moment, she wakes up, realizing that it was all just a dream. Looking up, she notices that it is already daytime, and beside her is the protagonist with the grimoire. She feels relieved and soon after says that everything is fine now. Getting up excitedly, she declares that she will make breakfast, and the protagonist just glances sideways before going back to sleep. The next scene shifts to another place where a group of people seems to be gathered, spotting another group. They say they have already found them, so they must go quickly, as it is already time for the hunt. As they approach that place, the villagers plead for them not to do anything and to spare their lives. They have lost their homes and barely escaped with their lives, but it is obvious that those wicked people do not care about any of that. They knock one of the poor men to the ground. Soon after, another woman appears, saying that what is in the bag is all the food they have. Upon hearing this, the man gets angry, saying that now they must kill the rest. The old woman pleads for them not to do that, but it is already too late. The men have no mercy as they are wiping everyone out, and there are hardly any left. The remaining ones are desperately trying to run for their lives, but it is clear that the group is pursuing them. The next scene shifts to the forest where Solon was, and the fairy says they managed to cross the mountains safely. Changing the subject, Solon asks if anything happened, and she replies that yes, because the mountains are full of dangers from wild animals to bandits. At that moment, they both notice something. There was a group of crazy people attacking just one guy. However, it was already too late because the kid had already met his end. Out of nowhere, the man's head goes towards that little fairy who dodges. That man, blood in his eyes, notices the protagonist saying that there are more prey for them. Those guys were thirsty for blood, and the fairy desperately states that they are bandits. Solon simply despises them for being human, and the grimoire observes the situation, saying that he should not let his guard down as those guys are different. Then one of those humans uses his magical eye to observe that fairy. He also had a kind of magical bag with him, ordering her to hand it over, as doing so would spare their lives. Hearing this, the fairy is surprised, realizing that she has no other choice, but still she will not hand it over even if it costs her life. A flashback appears in her mind with the fairy being surprised by what she had seen. After all, the person who saved her was killed. The magical bag changes shape to match its owner and will certainly help her survive, which is why the old man entrusted that item to the girl. Returning to the present, she says that she will not give it to someone like him, so the man says that apparently she has chosen death. The girl is surprised by what she saw, but at that moment, Solon intervenes in the situation. Then the grimoire says that she is brave, and she responds with just a smile. At that moment, the group charges at the protagonist, who merely watches them move a muscle. He invokes his powerful ability, stating that he definitely cannot lose to people like them, not when it comes to demons. Surprised, the man says that he has discovered that they are actually demons, and for that reason, it cannot be avoided. If that is the case, he will show them the form of his group, and all those humans were actually monsters. Without wasting time, the grimoire begins to analyze the data, realizing that they are the greed of rank number 170 and are called Roboyashi the Raider. and that is the name Solon must remember. Charging at all those monsters at once, the creatures were trembling at their core because they were simply being sealed. Meanwhile, it is already too late as the sealing has been completed. The protagonist says that his time to laugh has ended and that this is his end. Then the arrogant fairy says that our Solon is quite strong. But at that moment, Solon notices something, saying that something is wrong. Apparently, one of the demons was not sealed. Observing the situation, the grimoire states that this one is on a different level. The monster had blood in its eyes, wanting to kill the protagonist, and Faizi asks what the grimoire means by that. He explains that even among demons, there are different ranks, and sealing a demon requires matching the exact rank and name. Correcting the information will not succeed. Upon hearing this, Faizi seems to understand, saying that it was actually the grimoire that miscalculated. Then the grimoire says that there were many monsters and that it could not be avoided, but the fact that the monster remained unsealed is true. The monster charges at the protagonist, who is surprised by how fast the creature is. The fairy just watches, and at that moment, the monster grabs her, dragging the poor girl into the forest. There was also a demon that, despite being there, had not been sealed. However, it was quickly dealt with, and the grimoire says that this was careless. Solon declares that you will not let a single one escape, and that you will definitely save the fairy. The grimoire agrees but points out that the demon has legs, asking how they will pursue it. The next scene shifts to the forest, with that demon running from our hero. The creature was desperate about what had happened. A flashback appears in its mind with someone calling it useless and ordering it to hurry because it can't even take care of a horse properly. There was also the latecomer questioning why it was so incompetent, but in reality, they were the useless ones. The scene returns to the present, with the demon saying it must kill anyone who looks down on and prey on the weak. After all, it gained the power to make them understand, asking if the girl understands this too. However, she tells him not to mess with her, as she is not afraid of someone who can only fight by becoming a demon, and for that reason, she will not become like him. Hearing this, the monster becomes more enraged, saying that if that's the case, it will kill her. But at that moment, Solon appears above the demon. The grimoire states that he is Greed, rank 65, named Dariach. Surprised, the creature realizes that our hero has caught up to it, but is already too late as the young man has used his chain ability. Using the tree to get closer to the creature, the demon watches everything in surprise and then receives a blow, causing Faizi to start falling, but the grimoire catches her. Irritated, Solon says that the monster is very problematic, and that it is the grimoire's fault for messing everything up, but at least he managed to seal it being easily. Sometime later, Solon was walking through some ruins, asking where the demons that Faizi knows are. She says they will find out when they go a little further, but the grimoire insists that this information is important and should not be kept a secret. Hearing this, Faizi says she has no other choice and then warns that it is in a place in an abandoned city. Apparently, something was missing in that place. There are many people who fall asleep in front of the gates. The grimoire says he understands, asking if she cannot say what's happening inside. Faizi agrees, saying it must be the work of a demon, and the grimoire states that it is not possible with magic, but is still a possibility. However, Solon is not capable of doing that. Meanwhile, our hero was silently saying that if something like this happens, it would be the work of a great magician or a wise man. However, the possibility of it being a demon is greater, and it is worth at least checking. Still, he wants to know if she has any reason to go there, and if she wants them to truly trust her, she must do her best to be honest, asking if Solon did not work hard to save her from those bandits before. Hearing this, the girl is surprised. Asking if Solon did this not to defeat the demons, the demon agrees but still says he pursued the monsters with all his strength to save her. After all the conversation, Solon feels embarrassed and the girl smiles after learning everything, asking if he is really such a cute person. She is also becoming quite embarrassed after all. The difference between the two is quite large. However, if they insist, they could find a way, and then Solon gets angry, grabbing the girl. The next scene had already turned to night, and the group finally found the fabled village. As they approached the place, the fairy said they should ask to stay there. Solon asked if she was already familiar with the area, and the fairy replied that yes, but only from the rumors she had heard. Still, Solon was aware that this was just an excuse. Changing the subject, Grimorio mentioned that being disturbed and causing a commotion is also problematic, and for that reason, he would leave the negotiations with the villagers to them. As time passed, the group was walking through the village, but there was still something strange. Faizi asked, and it didn't seem like everyone was quite tired, and Solon noticed that too. Soon after, they entered an inn, and the old woman was surprised, saying it was rare to have someone asking to stay there as well. There was food there that they would enjoy, and accepting the offer, Solon decided to stay at that place. Everything in that place felt very strange. Solon agreed, asking what was wrong with the village, and at that moment, he heard a very loud noise. Looking out the window, he realized the sound was coming from that direction. They were surprised because those people were still working in the middle of the night. At that moment, Grimorio woke up. Soon after, someone ordered them to work, saying there was no time and they must continue working forever. It was revealed that there was a demon controlling them. Solon and Faizi just observed the situation, and the demon said he would never allow them a moment to rest. So the video ends here. If you don't want to miss the next part, activate the notification bell, and see you next time on Tob's channel.